I thought the best way to give you an idea of how the Sports Leaders program has had an impact on our players is by having one of them speak to you directly. Now, Mike, I had the pleasure of coaching him when he was a freshman. He was playing on the sophomore team. He was by far one of the most physically dominant linebackers that I've ever coached.
It truly is a privilege for me to be able to share my story on how the Nazareth Academy Sports Leadership Program has helped me. For about the past 2 years, I experienced a lot of difficulties. I won't tell you everything, but I'll give you a little insight on how the program has helped me. The 8th game of the season in 2008, I managed to sprain both my ankles in one play. How did I do that? I don't know. And that led to a whole ordeal of me seeing doctors, foot specialists, and even therapy. It was great help, but even though I had such great help, my body just wasn't healing properly. And when I thought I was healing okay, I ended up pulling my hamstring in an early morning practice a month later. And at that time, I'm going nuts because I really want to pray and practice, but my body just won't allow me to. And that frustration started to turn into depression because not only did I have back-to-back injuries, I was failing in 2 subjects. And I really felt like I was beginning to sink. And it got to the point where I couldn't even respond to my mother's attempts to reach out to me. And then that turned into guilt because it worried her, and I never wanted her to be worried at that moment in time because she was going through a tough separation marriage. Everything seemed dark, and I began to pray to God because I realized that I needed and truly wanted help. Even though there were a lot of people around me, I still felt alone. But to make a long story short, Coach Racky, the head coach, knew something was wrong, and he sat down and he let me know that he and Nazareth were here in the capacity that I needed them, and he meant that. And so with my permission, he informed Doc Nelson about my issues, and me and Doc sat down and we talked. And one by one, we tackled my issues. We set attainable goals pertaining to my grades. We even took a Pilates class together to help strengthen my body and prevent injuries, and we prayed about my family issues. Doc and Coach met me where I was, and I'm glad they did. And I know some people might say to themselves, Pilates is a stretch, but that's what I needed at that time, and it was the answer for me. You know, the Sports Leadership Program is here for all athletes. You don't necessarily have to go through what I was going through. You could just need somebody to talk to, some venting time, and they're great listeners. And I just think it's wonderful to have such great leaders among us to go to. Like, for example, I remember the first game of the 2009 season, I had to go through a defensive position change. I went from playing linebacker to defensive end. Now, I've done this many times before, played the defensive end position, so it wasn't like I was new to it. It was the first game of the season, first defensive series. We went out, and I was just having a foggy first series, and I didn't know exactly what was going on. And I came off to the sideline, and Doc came up to me and said, "What's wrong?" And I couldn't give him a complete answer. I was all over the place. He said, "Well, how about this? How about we come over here and we'll say a prayer?" We sat down. We got a quick Our Father in, and then he left me to myself to pray a little bit on my own. Next defensive series, went out. I had a very fine game that game, and it's just wonderful to see that just that little bit of assurance from my coach and mentor made that much of a difference in the way I played. And from the relationships that I formed with the sports leadership program, it's really caused me to analyze my thoughts and my virtues, because it's wonderful to see how caring for others is probably one of the best things you can do, and it's contagious. I pray a lot more, but I don't pray for myself, I pray for others. And I was blessed to have two great examples show me how caring for others is supposed to be done. And now, as a growing young man, I pray to God a lot to always put me in a position to be able to give to others. I hope that I can come back to Naz in about 5, maybe even a year, and talk to the younger players on things that they need to do to become better men. That's a respectful thing to be able to do. That's all I have. With that, I'd like to thank you for listening to my story. I'd like to thank Coach Nelson and Coach Rackey for helping me out. Thank you.